Welcome to Conversations with Malik podcast. We would like to thank everybody who listens and watches this show. Please don't forget, you can check us out at convoswithmalik.com, convoswithmalik.com. There you will find all our social media links. We'll listen on Apple, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. Check us out on YouTube and Facebook, Conversations with Malik. Like, subscribe, share, Instagram, at ConWMalik. And here on this show, what we aim to do, we aim to bring information and inspiration through people. And we just have a conversation with Malik. And to get right to it, I'm on the line and on the video with my man and childhood friend who happens to be, listen, we're gonna get into what he's doing. I'm here with my man Harry Green from Harry Hands Rehab. He's been doing this for 17 years. He's a physical therapist. You know, he's been helping people. We're going to talk about the immune system. He was recently in China for a while. You know, he's global. So, we're glad we could get access to him for a second. and this guy from New York City, man, and he's going to talk about his adventures there in China, being in high altitudes. We're going to talk about COVID and how high altitudes could affect COVID and all that stuff. And I'm going to let him explain it, and I'll give you Harry Green. How you doing, Harry?
Hey, how's it going, people? What's up, Malik? Good to see you, brother. I feel honored being here on your show, and I'm glad we were able to connect and make this happen, because I feel like this is a good time. I believe in fate, and I'm just glad to be here.
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, you look tremendous. I mean, I'm looking at you and I'm like, is this the Harry from junior high school?
Hey, it's funny. I'll be 48 in 2 weeks.
Wow. Yeah. Well, yeah, because I know we're the same age.
Yeah, same age. You're the same age. Yeah.
So, I'll be 38 in about
I do that too.
I'll be 38 in June, you know what I'm saying? But listen, it's funny when I talk to people about health and wellness and about improving themselves, I would like that person to be a demonstration of what we're talking about. And just from the video, looking at you, you're obviously a demonstration of that.
Thank you.
Listen, let's get to it. You found your passion. You talked about in your questionnaire how 3 years into your career you kind of felt like you was lost. You felt like you was and you wanted to find some more of a purpose and passion. Talk to me about that part of your journey, and then what led into where you are.
All right. Well, for me, growing up, played different types of sports, but when I got into college, I think every young person is trying to what we call solve the identity crisis. Mm-hmm. So as we grow up, we're trying to figure out what we want to do in life. And I know for me, I just knew I had two good things going for me. I was very good with science and I love sports. So what I did was I just looked at my strengths versus my weaknesses, and I started to hear about physical therapy. And then I remember as a kid, I used to ride my bike past a physical therapy practice on Linden Boulevard by Nuclear Cleaners. And anybody from Queens knows that spot. Mm-hmm. And there was this Jamaican man named Mr. Flowers, and he had a physical therapy practice. And I always wondered what the hell that was. So it was like embedded back then. And then when I got to college, I started to see about athletic training. And so I started to feel myself out and say, hey, what do I want to do? And my dad told me about physical therapy a little bit, and it just kind of clicked. So I got into physical therapy school literally a month before 9/11. I used to take the train underneath the World Trade Center. And then I got this call. I got accepted the day after the 4th of July in 2001. I got accepted in the physical therapy school. And to me, it was just like fate, because who calls you on a Saturday to tell you got accepted into a program? And that was the way I got in. And it was after the deadline. So I got into physical therapy school. And when I was down there in Florida, the people who flew the planes into the buildings, they did their training down there in Fort Lauderdale in Hollywood, Florida, because the school I went to was called Nova Southeastern University. Mm-hmm. And that happened on a Tuesday. And that Friday, my school got a bomb threat and we got evacuated. And they said the threat was like a biological threat. So they, we had a class on what to do. And it was just interesting that I started practicing and I was just all over the place. It was like, picture like you have your room and you got to clean it up. And it's like, I was learning all these I had all these different cases. I had like rotator cuff, ACL, all these different types of orthopedic cases. And at that time, 3 years into my practice, I moved to Atlanta. So I was in Atlanta and I was trying to figure out a way to find my purpose within the field. And then I found we had this monthly magazine that came in on physical therapy, but in the back it had something called manual therapy. And it was structured. So it gave me 12 months more of training. And the professor, they were from Norway. And they took me and they just took everything that I learned and just organized it. And they helped me to really see therapy in a way that I never thought I possibly could. And so when you see a chiropractor.
What do you mean by, in a way, this whole manual therapy seems to have been the turning point? And then what was the vision change to make you see it in a different way?
Well, most of the time when you see a chiropractor, you see them doing the adjustments, right? So manual therapy is that form of therapy in the field of physical therapy. Manual therapy is doing those similar types of adjustments. But when they showed me the history of the whole field, and they said that, like, sometimes you'll see a regular doctor called an MD, but then you'll see another doctor called a DO, Doctor Osteopathic Medicine. The osteopathic medicine is where the manipulation started from. So the osteopathic medicine, when you go to Europe, you'll see osteopaths doing the manipulations. So the manipulations was what helped me to it helped me to bring together the therapy and exercise with the manipulations and the adjustments and the massage and everything. It helped me put everything together. So I was able to put together the exercise, the adjustments, and the massage, because they started telling me, they said, Harry, don't just look at the injury and think that that's the only thing you got to treat. They say, look at the whole body, look at it holistically. And so I started to, so I learned how to look, like if somebody came to me with like a rotator cuff problem, I realized that the problem could have started in the ankle. So I started to learn how to look at the body and see what joints were out of place when the person is standing still and when they walk. So I learned how to have a better eye of assessing human movement. So
I see what you're saying. So maybe the strain on the shoulder came from being off balance in general, kind of being off your square, like we say in the hood.
Exactly. So it's like I get someone and they say, man, I've had this shoulder and it just started and I'm in my 40s. And then I give a history. I say, hey, did you at any point ever had an ankle injury or foot injury or knee injury? And I just work it up to what we call a kinetic chain. So I start to trace it like a detective. I start to trace it and say, hey, you know what? Your SI joint is out in the sacrum back there. That's why your shoulder's hurting, because there's a connection with the body. The body communicates with itself. So if somebody has a joint problem, it could be coming from their organs. So we learned how to understand how the organs and the muscles and the joints, everything is communicating with itself. So it helped me to take everything and put it together and then pull it apart and then put it back together, So it's almost like thinking like a mechanic or an engineer, understanding how, if a person tore their ACL, chances are they probably had weak glute muscles, because sometimes, like when people, like one thing we learned, and you see this a lot, is people are having hip problems, which is causing them to have hamstring problems and lower back problems. So that's the connection, So if you get somebody that pulled a hammy, chances are they probably had tight hip flexors and they never addressed it. Yeah. So we even looked at injuries from back in the 80s. We went back and we studied looking at the case studies of other athletes who had these injuries in the 80s. And I remember I went to a conference in New York, and the surgeon from the Giants, he was telling us like the history of how they were trying to perfect the best ACL graft surgery, and you see how they, the course of it all, how they started out using this type of tendon, then they got to the patella tendon, then they got to the hamstring graft tendon. So there's so much going on. And when you look at the history of all these different injuries, for me, it excites me to understand, hey, this is where we are right now, and look at the track record of where we are, So that's always been my passion, is understanding how the body works and what's throwing it off, and then you look at diet as well,
Right. So this is why nowadays we're seeing athletes bounce back from horrific injuries.
Oh, yeah.
Alex Smith, Washington
Yeah.
Redskins.
Yeah.
You're talking 20-something surgeries later.
Yeah. Yes.
Guys that you see like splitting their leg, their bone going through one way.
Oh, yeah.
ACLs bouncing back, being better than ever. You're saying because now the approach now is really on a higher level. They're not just trying to fix that injury. These people are really looking at the body as a whole, and that's why these guys are coming back better than ever.
Exactly. And then the other thing is something called regenerative medicine. So you look at stem cells. You're looking at there's another procedure called PRP, platelet-rich plasma injection. So basically what they're doing is they're taking blood out of your arm and they centrifuge it, and they're taking the platelets, which has the healing part of it, and they inject that into the tendon. And that theoretically is supposed to accelerate the healing, because we're now in an age where we talk about regenerative medicine. How fast can the person get back and safely return without having a second worse injury, So that's how we gauge it. And when I go back to ACLs, Harvard came out with a new technique called the BEAR technique, BEAR, which is a blood injection that helps to regenerate the ACL and try to get these people, these athletes back faster, because they're now at a point where they say, hey, how can we improve a person coming back from an ACL surgery reconstruction in even faster than 10 or 12 months? So it's everything's still in the beginning stages, but when you look at all the different types of procedures, when you start to look at the way they're using regenerative medicine, the stem cells and the platelets, those are two areas that they're doing a lot of research on to see if they can get the person to be better and back faster. And the same thing with microfracture. Microfractures are, it's a tough procedure, because that's basically they have to drill holes into the bone to bring the blood to the surface to help regenerate the articular cartilage, which is like the hard cartilage. Mm-hmm. And when you hear about an NBA player getting microfracture surgery, chances are that you start to see a decline in their performance. It's that law called the Law of Diminishing Returns. So and the other thing too is, like, when you see someone getting multiple surgeries, unfortunately, on the same joint, you start to notice that that introduces more arthritic changes. So I just tell people, at some point you have to know when to like say, hey, I have to like weigh my options, because if you get like one injury, okay, I'm ready to go back. But if you have like 3 injuries, then it becomes a problem,
Wow.
Then you got to weigh your options. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
And so listen, you were in China.
Yeah.
How did that, first of all, I want to go to China.
You'll love it. You'll love it, man.
And I love traveling. But what led you to China, and talk to me about your experiences there?
Okay. So I was practicing in New York, and I saw an advertisement for working with the Chinese different junior Olympic teams. Mm-hmm. And so I said, wow, in 2012, as a fan, I went to the London Games in London, and I just went because I love sports. So when I saw that advertisement, I said, let me see if I can get an interview and see where it goes. And that's really how I was thinking. Right. And the guy, I did a Zoom interview, and they were 12 hours ahead. And he said, he asked me what sports I am familiar with when it comes to rehab. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm more of a summer sport guy, 5Ks, track and field, things like that.
I played for the Springfield Rifles. Oh man, I know you had to tell him that.
I should have had my jersey on and my jacket, but it would have been like super tight, But I couldn't go glory days on him. But okay. But I did tell him I still play flag football, so I was like, hey man. But
we won championships, by the way.
Yes. I tell the guys in Florida all the time, don't sleep on New York's football.
Right.
But the funny thing was, like, he was a athletic trainer, physio from Canada. And so he interviewed me and then he hired me. But the process to get onboarded with China took like 7 months.
Okay.
So I got interviewed in January of 2018. And then I didn't get officially brought onto the team until December of that year.
Wow. So you have to be patient.
Yeah, because I had to go to the embassy. I had to have all these different documents notarized and sent back and sent to me. So when I got on, and the other thing that happened was I lost my passport in the summer of 2018. So that delayed things. So I had to get a new passport.
Me too.
But when I got my new passport, the summer the positions were already filled. So he said, hey, we got a position with a ski team, but the team is in Portland, Oregon. Did you still want to go? And I said, oh, okay, this is cool. So I took the job and I ended up in Portland, Oregon with the team.
Cool.
And I was there with other strength coaches and therapists and athletic trainers from different countries because there was 150 kids. Because what happened was China is they got the representation for the 2022 Winter Games. So they wanted to have a strong representation there. So they started to recruit clinicians from other countries to help their athletes get better. So what they did was they took kids from other disciplines. They took kids from gymnastics and fencing, and they measured them, and then they put them on ski teams. And that's what they did. So my team was ski slope style. So that's basically where you're skiing, but you do tricks. So think of like skateboarding, but you're like jumping and like sliding on the rail, or you're doing these flips on the ramps.
I've seen it.
You've seen that, right? Yeah.
Well, I just recently seen it on Ridiculousness that somebody hurt the shit out of yourself. I was like, oh yeah. Shit.
Yeah, it was a lot of injuries. So
you gotta be brave to do that.
Dude, bro, we had 150 kids, and the goal was to like get the teams down to like I think 40 kids. So we had a massive amount of kids that came in, and we just had to assess them, and either you get pushed through or you get cut. And so that took like 6 months to narrow it down. Then my team.
What was the worst injury? What was the worst injury you seen?
Okay, so I was up in the mountains. Let me tell you the schedule. Every morning we would drive 2 hours to go to the mountains to do training. Okay. So and it was in snow. So it was just like a lot of snow. So we would have to pull over and put chains on the tires of the bus just to get up the mountain because there was like no traction. But the mountain was we were 5,000 feet at base camp, and then the top of the mountain was 11,000, Mount Hood, which was an active volcano, mind you, in Portland, Oregon. But anybody from Portland knows about Mount Hood. But I was sitting at the lunch table after lunch, and then my phone just starts ringing crazily. And then the athletic trainer reached out to me and said, hey, we got an injury on the mountain, young girl. She cartwheeled out of control, and when she landed, she fractured a femur. And so they had to heliport her to the hospital, Children's Hospital in Portland, Oregon, to do the surgery that night. So she was the youngest on the team. She was 12 years old, had a fractured femur. And I got the call to like be the guy who did the rehab. So instead of me going now up to the mountain every day with the team, I stayed at the hotel and did the rehab there at the facilities at the hotel. Right. So I did 2 sessions with her, morning, afternoon, and then a nighttime session with the athletes coming back from training. So I was doing 6 days a week from 9 a.m. to about 10 p.m. at night each night. But Saturdays was like a half a day, but that was like my schedule. And it was just whoever needed therapy, I would do that. And then I had the interpreter and the Chinese doctor with me to talk to the American surgeons because nobody spoke Mandarin. So we had to like relay everything between the doctors. And then I would have to send my reports back to Beijing. But it was just like she had a horrific injury. But here's the kicker. Like with my rehab, I got her back to skiing in 5 months because the doctor at first said she wouldn't ski until 9 months. And but then he saw
your approach and what you do.
Yeah.
You got it back quicker, so you get results in what you do. And I admire some of those athletes. Let me tell you something. First of all, to have the courage to know that these tricks and these things that you do, you could get hurt You've seen other people get hurt as an
Yeah.
athlete. So some of these kids are brave. So for the fact that they have the courage to go do it is courageous. Number two, to then get hurt and to endure the rehab.
Yeah.
And, you know, people don't know, you know, we watch sports and we see somebody get hurt and, you know, and they come back and we like, well, when are they going to come back? How soon are they going to come back? We don't see what they go through.
Nah, the process.
Back. The process of building from ground level.
Yeah.
First of all, the pain.
Yeah, a lot of screaming.
The sacrifice.
Yeah.
Not being able to do things with your family, or if you're a kid, not being able to hang out with your friends and party and this and that.
Oh, yeah.
To work your way back, to then take the risk to do it again.
Yeah.
That's the road.
And the thing was, you know, like she was worried about getting cut, but I said they're not going to cut you because you had the injury. And long story short, they didn't cut her. She ended up making the team. But I never forget the surgeon in Portland just sitting down in his chair when he saw the before and after x-rays he did on her at 4 months. And he said she can go back to light skiing for 20 minutes a day just to get her sea legs back. I remember him saying that.
Right.
Yeah. But it was an amazing injury. And then I had, you know, people like doing the jumps and landing and then the trampolines. I've seen so many fractures. I mean, I had fractured proximal humerus fracture, fractured spine. It was because they took kids who because typically when you learn how to ski, you really want to start doing it when you're like 6. To do it when you're like 12 is a little late in the game, you know? So especially with tricks, you know, it's a little late in the game, but they just said, no, get them, ski them, let them ski. And then we traveled around we traveled Oceania. So we traveled to China, Australia, and New Zealand for the rest of the year doing competitions. So that was cool. Yeah, New Zealand was, and that's what this is, All Blacks, man. That's their favorite rugby team.
Nice.
And it's weird. People think I'm mocking this for Black Lives Matter, but I thought about saying, yeah, it says All Blacks, but they don't know that it's a team. So I said whatever, you know, because Black lives do matter. So I get it, you know.
No doubt. And Harry Green is international, so you know he gets good wears from all over the place. So you know you don't know what you're looking at, man. You know, I just want to interject. You know, the weirdest thing that happened to me though when I was in China, I had a Chinese man tap me and asked to take my picture with me because he never met a black man before. It freaked me out, yo. I was we was way up north in the country, and I could hear the other lady yelling at him, telling him to leave me alone. But he was very polite about it. But when I took the photo with him afterwards, it started. Like, it didn't make me upset, but I found that I never had that happen to me. So it made me realize that, yo, there are people in the world who's never even met a black person before or a Latino person. And that I found that very interesting. That was very interesting. That is very interesting. And that's why we gotta understand that what we do and how we carry ourselves has consequences globally.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, and people are always watching, and that's why now, you know, a lot of people are upset about what happened on January 6th, right? Yeah. But I'm kind of not upset. You want to know why? Because I'm like, see what we've been dealing with?
Yeah.
See what we live with?
Yeah.
You know, they showcasing they showcasing they shit to the world. And I'm kind of taking a different tack on it. Yeah, I know that, you know, we are treated different when we march. And listen, that's been the case since the 60s with our peaceful marches. But I'm glad that
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I'm glad that they're showing, you see what they're about? You see what they're capable of doing?
Yeah. In fact, when I was in New Zealand for the last part of the contract for 7 weeks, and where I got my coffee, there was a white woman there with her husband who was the natives of New Zealand are called the Maori tribe. So he was a Maori tribesman. And she asked me, I never forget her asking me, she said, what does it feel like being a black man in America with all the racism?
Mm-hmm.
White woman asking me this, posing me this question. And I said to her, I said, all right, let me lay it out for you. I said, for me, you know, it's a little different between the North and the South. But I know for me growing up in New York, we were very, very, we had a lot of knowledge of self. So for me, I always knew and never looked at myself as less than, you know. And then I said, look, when you see a cop kill a black person and then the cop gets off, that's programming, because white people are going to look at that and think they can get away with it. Right. And that builds that privilege. But then the black people look at that, the younger ones, and say, man, you know what? I am a minority. I got no chance in this country. And unless somebody comes up to that young black person and tells them, says, hey, look, don't buy into that trap. That's a way to get you, to keep you thinking that you're a minority. But when you step outside the box, you realize that there are more people of color in the world than Europeans. Right. You know, so don't get stuck on, it's what I call, I had a German patient tell me this. He called it island sickness. He's like, America has been believing that they are superior because they've been isolated and built up on propaganda. And he's like, don't get caught up on that hype. He was like, look worldwide. And that's one of the things that keeps me open-minded, because even though I'm a therapist for 17 years, I'm still open to learn from other people. Yes. And that's what keeps me keeps me going.
Yes. And you know, it's funny because you can travel the world. I've been talking a lot about the planet lately when it comes to business, because I've been doing business in different places. You know, I just got back in town today, and I'm like, yo, I'm getting back because I'm interviewing my man Harry. I got before I was asleep last night, but it didn't matter. I was really excited about this. But I was just talking to a friend of mine who owns 16,000 chickens in South Africa. He's a part investor in a television broadcasting company out there, and he's from Queens, right? So
that's what's up.
The planet is open, and you know there aren't niggas everywhere. Everywhere you go, you're not.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So, your experience in China, you was talking to me about, you know, COVID and the elevations and how it affects you. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay. So my big thing that I like to do now as a hobby is I run 5Ks. So when the lockdown happened, I was trying to figure out ways to work out last summer. So I started to do some research on altitude training. And then I came across this study that was looking at high altitude, people who live in high altitude having less cases of COVID-19. Okay. So I clicked on the study and I read it. And I said, wow, this is very interesting. So the 3 countries that they looked at was Tibet, Bolivia, and Ecuador. It was a study.
And you were in where at that time?
I was here. This was last summer. I was back home.
You had to come back home after already being here.
Yeah. So my contract ended in China last year around November, December. So I came back for the holidays.
So right before COVID hit, you got back.
I got back. Yeah, I got back. And then I hung out with my family and I said, okay, let me look to get back to work. Because I decided not to renew my contract with China because there was a lot going on with China with the politics of the job with the contract. So I said, you know what, I can't renew because the contract became very shady and I didn't like the way it was written. So I respectfully declined to renew my contract. And I said, well, let me see what I can find elsewhere. And that's when COVID hit while I was looking for work. But I kept working out. So I kept like staying in shape. And then I got hired by a telehealth company. Let me say that. So I got hired by a telehealth company. But when I came across this study about high altitude people having having less cases of COVID-19, they still had deaths, but the cases was much less. And according to the study, what they found was that people who live at high elevations, their bodies were somehow able to fight off the COVID-19. And let me just say it this way. In Tibet, is about, I would say 1,000 miles away from Wuhan, where it started, right? Right. There has been 0 deaths in Tibet to date, as far as I know. And the people who live in Tibet live in an elevation between 13,000 to 18,000 feet above sea level. Okay. Right. So apparently the virus that causes COVID-19 is called SARS-CoV-2. That's the pathogen that gets into your body, your respiratory system, and then it turns into COVID-19. Okay. Right. So COVID-19 is a version of a coronavirus. There have been many forms of coronavirus, but they call it COVID-19 because this is the 19th version. Right. Coronaviruses go back to the 60s. They've known about it since then. Okay. Right. Coronavirus is a zoonotic virus that goes from animal to animal, but when it jumps to human, then it becomes a problem. Gotcha. So that's the issue. So the SARS-CoV-2 was entering into the body, latching onto receptors called ACE2. Okay. So at sea level, what this study was showing was that people who live at sea level, they had equal amounts of ACE1 and ACE2. An ACE2 receptor is a vasodilator in your lungs. Mm-hmm. So the SARS-CoV was latching onto that ACE2 and proliferating itself inside the cells and wreaking havoc on people. Okay. But at sea level, the ACE2 receptors were less versus the ACE1. So the ACE1 receptor is a vasoconstrictor, and it was preventing the SARS from entering into the body. Gotcha. That's why they had less cases. So and this was a suggestion of mine to my colleagues, hey, why don't we try to simulate altitude living at sea level? Because there are gyms that have something called altitude training rooms where people go inside and sit inside these rooms to try to increase their hemoglobin and their oxygen and their red blood cells so that they can run and have more endurance. So I was thinking along those lines. Now, with that being said, this is all still in the theory phase, okay? Right, but from the
Harry theory.
Yeah, Harry's theory. So from the study, like just following the study, what I found was that people living at altitude, they do have low cases in these regions. Gotcha. Bolivia and Ecuador. If you look at sea level in Bolivia and Ecuador, the cases are pretty high compared to the people living in the mountains. And the sweet spot, they say, is between 6,000 and 9,000 feet above sea level, where the virus really struggles, because the other thing that they noticed was killing the virus was the UV rays, the ultraviolet rays. Right. That was also killing the virus. So the virus had a tough time surviving in the high altitudes. It's the same thing like mosquitoes.
Yeah, because they're installing those UV rays in the subway systems here in New York.
Oh, they are. Yeah. See, yeah.
They have them in the lights. They have them in a lot of the platforms. And you know, it's so funny. If we would have just had, and I'll let you finish, but if we would have just had coherent leadership, right?
Yes.
Someone who wasn't self-absorbed, who doesn't think that everything happening in the world is a made-up theory as a personal attack to them. Yeah. And would have just said, okay, listen, we're fighting a war, and we're going to build a war effort to beat COVID-19. It's all hands on deck.
Yes.
You know, we want the smartest and the brightest. We're building a team, and we're going to beat this thing from the UV ray lights to, to the cleanup crews that are coming every couple of hours and fogging up stuff and, cleaning up, to the masks, to the stay at home, all of that stuff, man.
Exactly. And then because you have to consider all possibilities when you're facing a war situation, especially when you're fighting an enemy that you can't even see, that's key. But when you politicize something, you end up becoming stagnant because you notice people are using they're using freedom as their right to not be safe. And that doesn't make any sense. That's conscientious stupidity. So
doesn't make any sense. COVID-19 don't care whether you Democrat, Republican, Black, white, Chinese. It ain't something made up. I've buried people who I care about. I've seen brothers my age pass from it. It's not no hocus pocus. It's real.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I was looking at also was there was another study done in Sweden back in October, an in vitro study. So an in vitro study means they do it inside a petri dish, a glass. Yeah, whereas right. an in vivo study is they do it between humans and animals or plants. Right. But they looked at nitric oxide, and what they found was that nitric oxide also has a way of fighting off the SARS-CoV, because the key thing is you want to stop the virus from replicating. That's the key. Gotcha. And what they found was that at high altitudes and with nitric oxide, the virus doesn't replicate as fast. Because the interesting thing about the Sherpas who live in Tibet, they actually have the same level of hemoglobin as people at sea level, and they have less oxygen. But the key is they have 240 times more nitric oxide in their body. And that's why
they're tough. Aren't they the descendants of Genghis Khan?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like 1 in 10 Asian is a descendant of Genghis Khan. And that's, you putting it down, you know.
He was a bad mamma jamma.
Yeah. Too. Yeah. He was Solomon in his day. But it's just interesting. So those are the two key things, like high altitude living and nitric oxide, from what I've studied so far, has a way of keeping the virus from replicating itself in the human body. Now, the issue with our community is this. A lot of our people, unfortunately, have autoimmune diseases. Right? And so when a person has an autoimmune disease, they also end up getting an auto suppressant drug. So if you're taking a drug that's suppressing your immune system, and then you got something that's coming in to even wreak havoc on your immune system, you're fighting a battle from a less standpoint now. Right. And that's why I believe when Fauci and all of them got together back in March and they was predicting that America was going to get hit the hardest. Now, I don't have any facts on the numbers, right. But I'm proposing that maybe it's because Americans or the most people on autosuppressant drugs because of the comorbidities. And that's why when you...
So I get what you're saying. The drugs they're just treating the symptom. They're not treating the overall problem. It's just, go ahead.
Well, it's like this. So if you take an autoimmune suppressant drug, right, and then you get infected with COVID, right, then your body goes into an immune response, and then the immune response ends up being so high active is what they call a cytokine storm or long COVID. Because now that the COVID can come and go, your immune response is still kicking in, and it doesn't calm down. And so now the people are having problems because now it's the autoimmune response that's really interfering with their body regulating itself. So think of it like you catch a fever and then, it lasts for 3 days and then you're better. But this doesn't stop because the body doesn't know how to shut it back down. Wow. And that's the problem. So when the virus comes into the body, like I said, it's latching onto that ACE2 receptor. And then the other thing that it's doing is it's attacking your hemoglobin. And so when it attacks your hemoglobin, the oxygen molecule has no place to latch onto.
Gotcha.
So that's why you're hearing stories about people having trouble breathing, because the COVID comes in and it's taking, think of your red blood cells like a bus or a train. And then the hemoglobin is like a seat. And then the oxygen is like the people. So the COVID comes in and sits in the seat of where the oxygen molecule should sit. And then the oxygen can't get in. And that's why you're hearing stories about people having trouble breathing. And it feels like, and when you put them on ventilators, it's still not helping because the COVID has taken the place of where the oxygen should be.
Wow.
That's what's going on. So like I said, I'm still unpacking a lot of stuff here because I'm trying to create a good game plan for people. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you right now, the one suggestion I can give as a health professional is to tell clients and people, when you go see your doctor, don't ask them, hey, how's my immunity doing? You would think that would be the question to ask, but that's not how it's going to go down. So what you have to do is say, hey, look, you go get your physical, get your blood work done, and then you ask the doctor, hey, what's my zinc levels like? What's my magnesium levels like? Okay. What's my vitamin D levels like? Because those are the things that's going to help you have a stronger immunity.
To fight off. So zinc levels, I need to write this down because I need to ask.
Yeah.
Zinc levels.
Zinc levels, magnesium, And oh my God, I can't believe I just drew a brain fart. Zinc
And
levels,
vitamin D.
magnesium, vitamin D, yes, vitamin D, and vitamin C also, because the key thing with the vitamin D is that vitamin D is a hormone more so than a vitamin. And the
Really?
vitamin D, vitamin D is a very, very powerful vitamin and hormone because it helps your body with so many different processes. So you need vitamin D. So a lot of times in the winter months, you want to make sure you're getting a good amount of vitamin D because the sun isn't hitting your body like
right.
yeah. So the skin can't react the right way.
So let me ask you something, because I remember I was listening to recently I was listening to some of my old tapes with Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, and he talks about and so he talks about he was talking about how the Africans travel to different parts of the world, and how the Africans who ultimately wound up in the cold parts of America, like Alaska and things like that, and in the Arctic, the reason why they kept their colors because they were eating the fish that was high in vitamin D, like the salmon and stuff, and so that's why they kept their color. And they didn't, being that they was in cold weather and they didn't have a lot of sun, their pigment didn't change like the Africans who got caught in the ice age in Europe, because they had access to vitamin D that was in the fish.
Yeah, and the fish are getting it from the plankton, the algae. The fish are getting it from not the plankton, excuse me, the algae. The fish are getting it from the algae because that's how they get it.
Right.
So they eat it, and that's why sometimes now when you go into the store, you'll see algae fish oil. You'll see it as that form, and that's how they end up surviving. But the vitamin D and the zinc and those vitamins right there and those minerals are very good. So when you go and get a physical, just ask your doctor, hey, what are my levels are they within the right range for me? Because that's how you can tell. It's like an indirect way of measuring your immune system.
Wow.
Okay. Because the one things that we don't learn is, it's just like financial literacy. The one things that we don't learn is, hey, when does the immune system mature? When is the right time to do that? But the one thing you can do is look at where you are right now and know what to eat and how to eat it and how to get the right absorption from those food sources, So I always tell people food can either be your medicine or your poison. So use the food. And then if you still have low levels, then you will want to look at a supplementation. That's the way I tell people to go about it, because I talk with my nutritionists who advise me. And so these are just different things. You want the body to be in an alkaline state, not acidic. And you want to be able to have some of these key nutrients that can help with the immune system, because that's the best way to know that you're from a nutrition side. And when it comes to exercise, I tell people, try to get moderate exercise where you're exercising between 40 to 75% of your VO2 max, which is the amount of oxygen that you're using when you exercise. Okay. And don't go past 45 minutes in each session. Because if you exercise super, super hard and you exercise beyond an hour, you're actually exposing your body. Your immune system actually dips.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's what we call the open window theory. Now that has been highly contested since 2000, but it is an interesting theory because they were showing that if you exercise like with high intensity training, the HIIT training, and you hit that hard, and then you go, let's say, to a cafe or you go to work, now your immune system has dipped and you're around other people who might not wear a mask. So you're exposing yourself.
Gotcha.
So I always tell people, if you're going to exercise, and it doesn't matter what you're trying to exercise for, you just want to get in shape and stay healthy, do it and then go home and recover, get some nutrition in you for the next 1 to 3 hours. That's the time frame that you should do. And that's like the way you can measure your heart rate, get a heart rate monitor. There's another formula that you can use to calculate your heart rate. It's called, I got it right here. I'm just pulling it up right now. So a good way to measure your heart rate with the VO2 max is called, the formula will be the number 15.3 times your maximum heart rate divided by your resting heart rate. That's how you can check your VO2 max at when you're that's a good way to check it. Okay.
When you're exercising. Wow.
Because
this is
no,
a lot
thank you.
of tremendous information that you have, and I could tell you're gonna have to become I'm gonna make you the ambassador of the show. We're gonna have to do this, like once a month. Because honestly, people. First of all, I'm learning a lot, and I know you got much more to share. And people really need to know this. And before we close, because I know the game's gonna be coming on soon.
Oh yeah.
And me and you are football guys, and we're not missing none of the game.
Oh man.
Who you got on tonight's game?
I gotta go with Ohio State just because my man Fields got hurt in Clemson, and I want to see him do well. Alabama's strong though, man. And I underestimated the brothers in Alabama. I ain't going to front. I got much more respect for them now. But I'm going to go Ohio State because I like what I saw in Fields, man. He's a fighter. I like him.
He's a fighter. I like how he got up. And as a New Yorker, I'm saying it to people who think that we might have lost out on Trevor Lawrence, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I see the Jags are talking to Urban Meyer. I personally love Urban Meyer. I think he's a better coach than Nick Saban and all of them. If I had to pick a coach.
Interesting. Yeah.
I had to, and listen, I love Dabo Sweeney and I love all of those guys.
Oh, yeah.
But if I had to pick a coach to run my college program,
I
would go with Urban Meyer.
I respect that.
Yeah. And so the Jags are going after the right guy. And Trevor Lawrence, I could see the match is cool. But what I'm saying to people is the silver lining might be Jets make a smart decision. Hire Eric Bieniemy because this is the second time interviewing him.
Yes.
Put him with Justin Fields and rock out.
Yeah, because you got a high-powered coach who coached Mahomes, and they can light you up easily, and he could come in and Fields, like I said, man, when I saw him throw those daggers down the field, oh man, dude, the Clemson guy couldn't even keep up. I was like, yo, is this a track meet? So that's why I like what I see. Even though Alabama got that wide receiver who just won the Heisman, he's got deceptive speed. The kid is nice.
Yeah, they're loaded. All of their receivers.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's gonna be hard tonight. But so you going with them, and I'm my heart is with Justin Fields because I would like to see him win it, but my head is telling me Bama.
Yeah, if I gotta put money on it, I gotta go Bama because they bangers, man. They know how to bang. You know,
and so look, in closing, what would be your main? Let's talk about the Black community. We got a couple minutes left.
Okay,
2-3 minutes. Let's talk about the Black community, health and wellness, and your suggestions for people in regards to health and wellness.
Okay, so I'm gonna preface it like this. This is what I call my pep talk. So the PEP stands for Prescribed Exercise Plan, okay? So you want to exercise moderately 3 to 5 times a week for 20 to 45 minutes. And like I said, you want to be able to, if you're measuring your VO2 max, you want to be between 40 to 60%. Target heart rate zone should be between 65 to 75%. So those kind of line up. And that, because these are what I call the target heart rate zone and the VO2 max. They're what I call your exercise indicators that your heart is pumping the required immune cells around the body.
Nice.
So that you are safe and sound. Gotcha. That's the key thing. Because, and the other thing I'll say is because there are some people who don't have a spleen. Now, the spleen is an organ that is where a lot of your immune cells are. Okay. So a lot of people don't know that the spleen is where some of your immunity is. And then, but even though 70% of your immune system occurs in your gut, the spleen is an important immune system fighter. So if there are people who don't have a spleen, they have to be a little bit more cautious where they go and how they work out, because they're at a disadvantage. Not to say that they can't work out, but the spleen is one of those organs that is where immune cells are found, like your fighter T cells and your B cells and everything. And then the other thing I would say is your lymphatic system is your circulatory system. It's like your circulatory system, and that's where these cells travel. That's the highway for these cells. So this way they can circulate and get in there. And then the other thing I would say is, I tell people, clean your nostrils, because that's one of the entry points. So I tell people, use soap, clean it, soap and water, go from there. You know, I don't have to tell people, hey, use some bleach and this and that. I don't have to go all over the place with it, but just soap and water, because that's you want to keep clean the areas where you know it's going to be an entry point, you know?
Yeah, I learned that from my cousin who's a Muslim. You know, they put the water in, so I put the water in my hand in the shower, and I breathe it up into my nostril and blow it out. And I do that 3 times every time I wash.
Yes, because the soap has, I forgot the compound in the soap, but the soap has a way of, there's some antiviral properties within the ingredients of certain soaps. So that's why you'll see it advertised. But it's just a good way to keep yourself safe. And like I said, when you go get a physical, especially our community, the doctor's not going to pull anyone off their immunosuppressant drugs. I already know that. So we have to find other measures to keep ourselves safe. And I would say exercising with that prescribed exercise plan, the pep talk, is a good way to start. And once I'm able to roll out the altitude training rooms, that would be something that I'm going to have to do a lot more research on. But I believe that can help us, because I think that altitude training is going to be one of the key ways to help build us up, you know. And so that's me staying in my lane. You know, I can't go into the whole vaccine thing or what have you. But from an exercise point, I think that's key. And the other thing is, like I said, ask the doctor when you get your blood work, hey, where are my zinc levels? Where's my vitamin C levels? What's my vitamin D levels? So that this way you can use that as a way of measuring, hey, I got good immunity. I know that if I do this, I'm ahead of the curve, you know, going with that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, listen, man, you know, it's been great having you on. Just real quick, what is your diet like, and what is your exercise regimen like?
Okay, so I exercise 5 times a week. So 3 days a week I do quick sprints. So I run like 4 laps of 50 yards, and then I go to the high school on the weekends and I run between 4,000 to 6,000 meters. So that's around maybe 10 to 15 times around the track, because one time around the track is 400 meters. And I do short bursts, because I try to build the heart rate up, then I slow down, build the heart rate up, slow down. That's my routine. I haven't had a chance to get into the gym, the strength train, which I'm missing dearly, because it just trying to keep it safe. But that's my routine. Now, as far as diet goes, I do like something what they call intermittent fasting. So I'll spend Monday through Friday eating just vegetables and a little bit of meats. And then on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'll eat maybe 1 pasta dish, 1 starch dish. I do it that way. But I don't eat starch and pasta and carbs in the same setting with my vegetables and my meats. Gotcha. So I separate them now. Yeah. And I do small meals just throughout the day, but I usually stick between 2 to 3 meals a day, and I eat some nuts and go from there. And I do apple cider vinegar water. That really helps me out a lot. I believe that keeps me alert.
Well, you look great. Tell everybody how they can find you.
All right. So you can reach me on Instagram at HHRMD007. That's my Instagram link. And actually, that's really all I use until I get my YouTube channel up. But for now, that's the best way to reach me.
Gotcha. Until he gets his YouTube channel up, you can check out his interview on my YouTube channel.
Yes.
You know, and listen, you know, a lot of great information. It's good to hear from you. It's good to talk to you, man.
Yes, brother.
You know, and when everything opens up, listen, I'll be calling you for some health and wellness tips. I got a resource right at my disposal, and
man,
I would encourage anybody, hit him up on Instagram. You got some questions, whatever it is. You see his business practice, things open up. He's going to be up and running. You know, use the resource. However he goes about dealing with you, that's how he goes about it. And this has been great, informative, you know, just or inspiring, and you look good, my brother, and thank you.
Hey, right back at you, brother. I just want to say it's been a pleasure to meet with you again, man. It's been a while, but it feels good to see my brothers from back in the day doing well, man. No doubt. And Trevor, God bless you guys, man. So I'll be in touch, brother.
Yeah, no doubt. And I end this interview like I always do. Brother Malik loves you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Peace.
Peace, bro. Later, bro.